Hello, my name is Steve Whiteman, and I am the instructor for this course. This is the CIT 232 course, and we will be covering Microsoft Excel. This video will be recording the activities of doing the review assignment on page EX58 and EX59 of your textbook. I will be covering the Chapter 1 material, which is Getting Started with Excel. I will be going step by step through the exercise, the review assignment, and you can watch this at any time, and hopefully it will provide you with the material in this chapter. I'm not guaranteeing that the review assignment will cover everything, so you will still need to review the textbook, but this should cover a great deal of the important information covered in Chapter 1. Now, we will be covering a brand new workbook. We will be creating a brand new workbook, so there is no workbook for you to have open in order to follow along. I will actually be creating one from scratch. So, the nice thing about these videos is that you have the opportunity to fast forward any of the stuff that you know for sure, and anything that you're unsure of, you can watch over and over and over again. Hopefully I will be doing this for each and every chapter to provide you assistance in this course. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up Excel. So again, I'm starting on page EX58. And let me read, before I actually get started, let me read you the opening paragraph. It says, Game Card also buys and resells used games and gaming supplies. Peter wants to use Excel to record recent used purchases made by the store. The workbook should list every item the company has ordered, provide information about the item, and calculate the total order cost. Complete the following. Step 1. Create a new blank workbook. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the bottom left corner of my spreadsheet and click, which will show me all of my applications on my computer, and I'm going to open up Excel. And Excel will open up, and I'm using Office 365 Excel 2016. So I click on blank workbook. Once this comes up, I have different options here, but I'm going to click on blank workbook. And let me read the following information from step 1, because I didn't read everything. It says create a new blank workbook. We just did that. And then save the workbook as game list in the location specified by your computer. Well, the location specified by me, the instructor, is anywhere where you know to go find it later if you need to use it again. In other words, I don't care if you save it on your desktop, My Documents, a zip drive, in a folder that you have specifically created for these files, for this course. It's up to you to know where to save it so that you can retrieve it at a later date. I'm going to save mine on my desktop. So I'm going to go to the File drop-down menu, and I'm going to go to Save As and Browse. This is going to give me the opportunity to do two things. Tell it where I want to name it and what I want to call it. What I want to call this is, per the instructions, is Game List. And where I want to save it is I'm going to save mine on my desktop. So I'm going to click Desktop and click Save. Now I've already gone through one of these before in doing some preparation for this, and so you probably will not get this message, but I do want to replace the current one that I have in there. So again, you probably won't get that message since yours will be brand new. Okay, so we have already completed one step of the steps to complete today. All right, step 2. It says rename the Sheet 1 worksheet as documentation. So down here, the generic name for this worksheet is Sheet 1. They want me to rename this documentation. And as usual in Microsoft Office, there's two specific ways that I can do this. I could right-click right on the word Sheet 1 and go to Rename. When I click on Rename, it highlights the name in a black box, if you will, a gray box, of which I can type right over that, and I can rename it Documentation. and then always make sure you hit enter when you're done typing. Now, if you don't prefer to do it that way, you can also put your pointer right on the name and double click. And when you double click, it does the same thing as the right click rename. It covers it in a box of which we can type and type over that. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter since I've already got the name that I want in there. Okay, that's part of step 2. It says rename the sheet 1 worksheet as documentation. Done. And then enter the data shown in figure 1-42 in the specified cells. Again, this can be found on page EX58 of your textbook. In cell A1, so I want to make sure I click right on cell A1, it says to type the text game card. Game card. Now, at this particular point in time, do not worry about the fact that it also goes into cell B1. That doesn't become an issue unless I type something in B1. If I do type something in B1, I will want to do something called resize the column, but column A is fine right now because, again, I'm not typing anything in B1. All right, the next step says to type in A3, so I'm going to skip A2. There's nothing for A2 to have. A3, they want the word author. Again, make sure you hit enter when you're done, or otherwise you're going to remain in what's called edit mode. And you don't want to stay in edit mode because that prevents you from doing a lot of things within Excel. So always hit enter when you're done. In A4, they want me to type the word date. Again, I type date and I hit enter. In A5, I'm going to type in the word purpose and hit enter. Okay. Now, also, most of the stuff that you do in Excel is not case sensitive, so it would have allowed me to do small cases for the first letter of the words, but I like to follow the text exactly as it's shown in my assignment, and they have the first letter capitalized. In cell B3, right next to the word author there, they want me to type in my name. So I'm going to type in Steve White and hit enter. And then they want me in B4 to type in the current date. So today for me is May 30th, 2019. Hit enter. And the purpose of this worksheet is to record game acquisitions, for game card. Again, the fact that it's going into other columns is not an issue unless I plan on using those cells, and I'm not, so we're fine with that. All right, I just completed step 2. So step 2 was a lot of data entry stuff. I always like to tell people it's better to be slow and accurate than to try to speed through this and have misspelled words, which will have consequences as far as your points given to you for the assignment. I am looking for correct spelling and grammar within the submissions that you will be doing. All right, let's move on to step 3. Set the font size of the title text in cell A1. So I have to click on A1 so that whatever I do is affecting that specific cell. And they want me to set the font size to 28. Now I can tell you there are at least 5 distinct ways that I could go about to change this to 28. I want you to take the way that you feel the most comfortable, and I will try to show you all of them as we proceed through this course. Take the one that you feel the most comfortable and use that particular way. You don't get graded on the way that you do it as long as it's done. Okay? So I do mine on the home ribbon. This box right here that says 11 is the font size. I'm going to use the down arrow and change that to 28. And that will change the font size of the text in cell A1. If you know another way that you might have learned in the CIT 110 class, you're more than welcome to do it that way as well. All right, step number 4. Add a new worksheet after the documentation sheet and then rename that sheet as game purchases. So down here where I have the documentation name, there's a plus sign, which allows me to add additional worksheets. So they want me to click the plus sign once to add another worksheet. And this one gets the generic name of Sheet 2. But they want me to change that to Game Purchases. So I'm going to double click this time and just type right over that and rename it Game Purchases and hit enter. Always hit enter when you're done typing. Okay, so now we've got two worksheets. This worksheet has nothing on it yet. The documentation sheet has all the things that we did steps 1 through 3. All right, so back on Game Purchases, I'm going to proceed to step number 5. In cell A1, enter the text Game Purchases. So I'm going to type in Game Purchases. And again, hit enter in cell A1. All right. In cell A, oh, and I'm supposed to set the font size to that to 28 as well. So again, I'm going to click on A1, come up to my home ribbon, font size, and change it to 28, very similar to what we just did in step number 3. In cell A3, it says enter the date. I'm on step number 6, and it says enter the word date as the label. And then in B3, they want me to actually enter the date of 4/3/2017. So I'm going to type 4/3/2017 and hit enter as the date. Okay? And then step 7. Now this step is going to take us a little bit of time only because it's data entry. It's not difficult. It's just a little bit time consuming to perhaps type all of this data. Some of you are faster typers than others. I can just tell you right now I'm fairly slow. And so I will be slow and steady through this process and hopefully not make any errors. So it wants me to start in A5. In A5, I'm going to type purchase number. Do not worry if it doesn't look exactly as it does in the textbook. We will making some changes later on that will perhaps make it look a little bit closer than what you see. So for example, in the diagram on the page, it has purchase on one line and number on another. At this point, do not worry about that. Just type it all in cell A5, purchase space number. And again, don't worry that it's going to get cut off because I'm going to be typing something in B5 as well. So here in B5, I'm going to type category. I'm typing all my labels as I see it in the figure. The next one is going to be manufacturer. Manufacturer. Okay. And in D5, I'm going to continue across. I'm going to type in title. And then I'm going to type in players. And then cost. Okay. Now it's time, I got my labels in, now it's time to actually type in the data. And really, it does not matter how you type the data. Some of you might prefer to do all of one column at a time. I prefer to do one row at a time, but you can find your own strategy. So I'm going to type in 83. I'm on looking at that white box on page 58 to help me out here. So purchase is 83. The category is strategy space game. The manufacturer is Beck Brothers. The title is Secrets of Flight with a colon. Building and Air Force. Okay, hit enter. The players, and I know a lot of this is getting cut off as we type in the cells next to it, but again, do not worry about that. We're going to be resizing columns in one of the next couple steps here. Players is 6, and the cost is $29.54. $29.54. Okay, got one row done. I got 4 to go. All right, the next one is 84. The category is family Game. The manufacturer is Parlor Vision. The title is Brain Busters and Logic Gaming. The players for this one is 8 and the cost is $14.21. Alright, 2 done. Third one is 85 for the purchase. The category, now watch this, when I type an S, it does what's called autofill. It says, hey, you've done one previously that was strategy game. Is this what you want? And I can simply hit enter and save myself a whole lot of time of having to type the rest of this out. If it was something that started with S but it was something different, you would just keep on typing. But here now I can just simply hit enter and it will put strategy game in for me. So that's kind of nice. It's called autofill. The manufacturer is Aspect Gaming. The title is Inspection Deduction. The players is 3 and the cost is $18.91, 18.91. All right, 2 to go. The next one is 86 as the purchase. I'm going to type in Party Game as the category. The manufacturer is Miller Games. The title is Bids and Buys. The players is 8 and the cost is $21.43. Last one. Purchase number is 87. The category is family. Notice again, as soon as I hit the F, it realizes that I had typed family games earlier. I can just simply hit enter, saves me a lot of time. Manufacturer is Aspect. Again, as soon as I type the A, it says, hey, you've typed Aspect Gaming before. So again, I just hit enter. So those two were easy. The title is Buzz Up. The players is 4 and the cost is $21.43. Okay. Oops, I actually did a mistake up here. As you can see, this should have been 1081 in cell F9. Most of you probably saw that and were yelling at the screen even though I couldn't hear you. So I'm going to type over that with 10.81 and make my adjustment. Okay. I even have my glasses on. You would think I could have spotted that. Okay, so we've got our data entry done, which is step number 7. Step number 8. Insert cells into the range A5 to A10, shifting the other cells to the right. So basically, we want to take all of this information here and move it over one column. So what I do is I select like they tell me in the instructions, A5 down to A10. I'm going to highlight those. Now, if you're not familiar with highlighting, what I do is I click in the middle of cell A5 and I have that white plus sign. With that white plus sign visible, I click and hold down the left side of my mouse, and I'm holding the left side of my mouse held down. And with it held down, I'm going to move my mouse down, and that will allow me to select a range of cells. Now, if you find that a little bit difficult, another way that you could do it that might be helpful is you can click on A5, come down to A10, hold your Shift key on your keyboard, Shift key, click in A10, and that will select everything in between. But you want all of those selected, A5 down to A10, either of the two ways that I just showed you. And we're going to right-click somewhere in this range, it doesn't matter, right-click, and you're going to go to Insert, And we're going to tell shift cells to the right because the instructions say insert cells into the range A5 to A10, shifting the other cells to the right. So make sure the dot's next to shift cells to the right and click OK. And we now have this new range here between A5 and A10 to add new stuff. Step number 9. In cell A5, which is now blank, enter stock ID. Stock ID. Okay. It says to enter the, let's see, in cell A5, enter stock ID as the label. In cell A6, we want to type in SG83. SG83. And then type FG in cell A7. FG, and then pause for me. Pause just a little bit because let me read the rest of this. It says, allow flash fill to enter the remaining stock IDs. If you look really carefully after you typed FG, there's a lot of gray stuff that is stuff that we're going to want. It automatically recognized what I was doing. In other words, if I look at A6, it says SG. I am taking the first letter of the two words in the category column. S for strategy and G for game. And then it follows by the purchase number. Well, Excel says, okay, I see that. And so for the next one, as soon as I typed in FG, the first two letters of family game, it said, oh, I know what you're doing, and it will fill in the rest of them for me. So at this point, all I have to do is hit enter, and that's called flash fill. So Excel tries to give us ways to help us with the data entry by being a little bit smart and figuring out this flash fill and also doing the autofill for us as we were filling in some of the data. So pretty cool. All right. Step number 10. Set the width of column A to 12 characters. Now there are 4 distinct ways to increase the size of columns. At this particular point in time, I'm going to show you what I would consider the easiest and most accurate. And that is if you put your pointer right on top of the letter A, you get a little black pointer right on top of the letter A, and you right click. You can go down to column width and left click on column width. And here we can specifically tell it how wide we want it to be. And the instructions say we want it to be 12. So I type a 12 in there and click OK. And that allows that column to expand to that size. It also says in step 10, do columns B through D to 18 characters. So I'm going to go to the letter B. I'm going to right click, column width, and change this one to 18. Click OK. Column C, right click, column width, 18, hit enter, and column D, right click, column width, 18. Okay, perfect. Column E then also goes to 25 characters. So I go to E, right click, column width, 25, hit enter. Okay. Now, the fact that we still don't see all of the words in column E for the titles will be corrected here in the next 1 or 2 steps. So I understand that that's the case. We probably should have made this a little bit wider perhaps, but they have a strategy that's going to help us out in about 1 or 2 steps. As a matter of fact, the next step. So I'm on step 11, which is the last step on page EX58. We will then move on to EX59. And it says wrap text in the range E6 to E10 so that the longer game titles appear on multiple lines within the cells. So I'm going to select E6 to E10, any of the ways that you feel comfortable selecting a range of data like that. And I'm going to go up to the home ribbon in the alignment group. There's a thing called wrap text. When I click on that, notice what it does. It wraps the text appropriately in my titles. And now I can see it all. So it went to a second line for the first two there because they were longer titles. Okay, so things are looking really good so far. So we're on step 12, a couple more steps to go here. Auto fit the heights of rows 5 through 10. Well, I'll tell you, we probably don't need to do that because they're already auto fit, but just in case, I want to show you how to do that. We're going to go between columns 5 and 6, right, or in the rows, I'm sorry. We're going to go between rows 5 and 6, right in the gray area where the numbers are actually located. And I'm going to get that line with two arrows, up and down arrow, and I'm going to double click. This is called auto fitting. And you probably didn't see anything change because they already are wide enough. But I'm going to go down here between 6 and 7, double click. Between 7 and 8, double click. 8 and 9, double click. 9 and 10, double click. And 10 and 11, double click. Just in case, but nothing really happened because we already had them big enough to see everything. That was step 12. Step 13, move the game list in the range A5 to G10 to the range A8 to G13. Now, you could use the cut and paste method, but I'm going to show you another way that is also considered cut and paste, but it's a different way than you probably have ever done before. That is, I'm going to select the range A5 to G10. So again, either of the two ways that you are familiar with how to select a range. I could have done this where I clicked on A5, came down here, held my shift key, and clicked on G10, and that would select everything. Okay, and then it says to move it to the range A8 to G13. So what I'm going to do, now that I have it all selected, is I'm going to go right to the bottom edge, and I get 4 arrows, left, right, up, and down, which I call my suction cup. If I see that, I hold down the left side of my mouse, and I'm going to drag this down to row 8, and let go, and I have now moved that to A8 to G13. Now, if you feel anywhere uncomfortable with that, you're more than welcome to continue to use the cut and paste method that you probably are more familiar with. But that's kind of neat there. All right, step number 14, in cell F15, so I'm going to click on cell F15, enter the total as the label. So I'm going to just simply type total, and I'm going to do it in all capital letters, just because the instructions kind of indicate that. So I'm going to type it all in capital letters. In G15, enter a formula with the sum function to calculate the sum of the costs in G9 to G13. Well, I'm going to make sure that I'm in cell G15 when I do this, and up here on the ribbon, on the home ribbon, I've got a thing that says auto sum, and it looks like a big capital letter E, or epsilon if you will, and I'm going to click that. Now when I click that, Excel takes a look at my spreadsheet based on the cell that I'm clicked on and says, what in the world would this person want to sum? And it looks left, right, up, and down, and it says, oh, here's a series of numbers from the range G9 to G14 that maybe I think that's the range they want me to add. Now, I don't need G14 to be added, but you know what? It's not hurting anything either. So I'm just going to leave things status quo as they are, and I'm going to hit enter, and I find out that the total of the numbers that I have in the cost are 94.9. Okay? So we're not going to worry about making it look pretty with dollar signs and everything. That will come in the next couple chapters as we learn how to format cells and stuff like that. All right, so that's step number 14. Step 15. In cell A4, enter total items. Total items. Okay. And it says, as the label, in cell B4, enter a formula with the count function to count the number of numeric values in the range G9 to G13. Well, I'm going to use this, even though it's called auto sum, and that's only because if you're as old as dirt like I am, it used to only do sum. But now that button actually does counts, does min, max, and averages. All I have to do is drop the arrow down, and this time I'm going to pick count numbers. Count numbers. Now when I click on that, it gives me a set of parentheses after count because it doesn't know exactly what I want to count. But as I read the instructions, again I'm on step 15, it says enter a formula with the count function, which we're seeing, to count the number of numeric values in the range G9 to G13. So I come over here and I highlight G9 to G13. So I clicked on G9, had my white plus sign, clicked and held down the left side of my mouse and dragged down to select those cells. And now all I got to do is hit enter and I get the result of 5. And that's what they're looking for in step number 15. Step number 16, in cell A5, enter total cost. Total cost. Okay. Then it says enter a formula to display the value from cell G15. So down here is my G15, 94.9. Do not type 94.9 here. We want to have something created so that if that number in G15 happens to get changed for whatever reason, it will also automatically change it in B5. So what we have to do is what I call link the two cells together. And what we do, and this will help you in a later chapter when we get into linking, but we do equals. Equals is always what you use to tell Excel you're doing some sort of formula and or function. But after equals, we're going to click, or if you want to type it, that's fine too, G15. So you can either type G15 or actually click on the cell and it will put G15 there for you, and then hit enter. This is now referencing that cell G15, and if anything should happen to G15 to cause it to change in value, it would also change it in B5. That's pretty cool. That is really cool. Okay, so that was step number 16. Step 17. In A6, enter average cost. Average cost. Okay. In cell B6, enter a formula that divides the total cost of the purchased game, which is in B5, by the number of games purchased, which is in B4. So again, I begin with an equals because we're doing some sort of calculation. And you always want to start things with an equals if you're doing a formula, function, or calculation. And it tells me divides the total cost by, so we want to do B5 first. So again, if you want to type B5, that's fine, or you can click on the cell and it will put that in there for you. Divided by B4. And again, you can either type it or click on it, hit enter, and we should have a result of 18.98. All right, we're winding down here. In step 17, nope, we just did 17, so we're on to 18. That's even better. Step 18, add borders around each cell in the non-adjacent ranges of A3 to B6. So first I'm going to select A3 to B6. Up here on my home ribbon, we have this one box right here that says border, bottom border, but if I drop the arrow down, I have other choices. These are my borders. And I want to choose all borders. So I click all borders, and that does exactly what the instructions say, where it says all borders around each cell in this range. Then it wants me to do the exact same thing, but for the range A8 to G13. So I'm going to select A8 to G13. I'm going to just click on this button. It always remembers the last option that you chose, and we chose all borders. So now all I got to do is click on that button, and it does it there. And then one last range, that's F15 to G15, and click the button. And we have added the borders as requested in step number 18. Number 19. For the game purchases worksheet, change the page orientation to landscape and scale the worksheet to print on a single page for both the width and the height. If you are instructed to print the entire workbook. You will never have to print anything in this course. You will not be printing anything. You will simply be attaching your workbooks for me to grade. However, that's a big however, I do want you to get things ready for printing as though you were going to print it. So I still want you to do the step 19. You just don't need to physically print it. So we still need to change the page orientation to landscape. To get everything ready for printing, you typically can go to the page layout ribbon. And this is the ribbon that is used for printing purposes. I can change the orientation to landscape. That's taking a regular piece of paper where it's 8.5 at the top and 11 on the sides, making the top 11 and the sides 8.5. Okay, so we're reversing the orientation. And if I come over here, I can set the width to 1 page and the height to 1 page. That's what the instructions tell me when it says to print on a single page for both the width and the height. Okay, we're almost done. Step 20, display the formulas in the game purchases worksheet. If you are instructed to print, again, print the entire worksheet. Again, you're not instructed to print. But what this allows me to do is, and this is good for instructors to help them grade, is instead of seeing the actual results in the cell, it will display the actual formulas that you use to make it easier for grading and for reviewing your worksheet. Well, how we do that is we go to the Formulas ribbon, and there's a button right over here under Formula Auditing called Show Formulas. If I click that, you can see now in the cells, it's actually showing me the formulas instead of the results. If we click to turn that off, it will show you the results once again. So that was step number 20. All right, now we're down to the last step. It says to save and close the workbook. So really, really important. Make sure you save your work so that you don't have to go back and redo the whole darn thing. Save it, and then you can close it. I'm going to close Excel altogether. And that is the review exercise. I hope you find these very beneficial. Again, this is just another resource that's available. The textbook is another resource, as well as if you're really stumped, you can send me an email. Also, you can watch other YouTube videos if necessary, but I hope this will be very beneficial to you. So thank you and have a super, super day.